Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm here to watch some TikTok videos, and I'm going to start out by watching a video that shows what is actually happening right now with the TPUSA chapters. TPUSA, if you guys don't know, is a group. It was the one that was started by Charlie Kirk, and it is a conservative attempt at reaching younger people. They figured out a really long time ago that they weren't going to really get a lot of young people to be conservative. So they had to create Turning Point USA, which has chapters on high school campuses and college campuses. And the point of what they do is, of course, to organize conservative students to support conservative ideas on campuses. So let's get into this video.
If you are at all curious what is going on or what's being discussed at these Turning Point USA, Club America meetings being forced on all of our high school students across the country, a recording of an actual meeting that deserves a massive trigger warning.
When you say you have to have 50% Black pilots and we need to get it done now, then what do you need to do to get that larger percentage? You have to lower the standards. When you create this large DEI percentage and then you lower the standards, that puts people in harm's way. Does that make sense? Actually, in a lot of industries, they did. In the pilots, in the industry, they did say 50% Black pilots. They did say that. And so a lot of the industries do. They have these metrics. So that is happening. I don't have it on me. We can look it up. Okay, a lot of research has come out that Martin Luther King was a Marxist and that he was for socialism, and a lot of the civil rights things that he advocated for were not really helpful. Now, there's a lot of research to that, but we can argue about that. My oldest daughter had a lot of trauma as a child. Something really terrible happened to her when she was very young that I would hope never would happen to any other child. And as a result of it, she's a lesbian, she's gay, and she's married to a woman. So I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and I believe that scripture is very clear on homosexuality. But on the other side of that, I love her dearly. We are in relationship. And that's what Charlie Kirk's message was. Is we may not agree. My daughter knows where I stand biblically, but I love her. I love my daughter-in-law, which is weird to say, right? My daughter's married to a woman. There's an individual in Placer County that she's a very lost soul, and my friends, we pray for her. And she likes to trash me online. She trashes other conservative leaders, other elected officials. She says the most horrible things. I'm not concerned because what she does is she takes things out of context. And that's a dangerous place. Nationalists, Christian nationalists and all these names, that's just a name that the left made up to silence people. I am a Christian and I love my nation. Okay, if I'm a Christian nationalist, but they use it in a negative way. But people are afraid to have those labels. Now, let me just clarify. We need to love everybody. Don't let the world or politics or the left put a label on you because to silence you, right? And you also need to fear God, not fear man. That's the tactic that the other side uses, that people who are being used of the devil.
There's a lot of feelings of unsafetyness because of just this bug and just again.
There's nothing unsafe about this room, and I understand what you're saying with Charlie, but again, I think maybe ask yourself this question. Do you feel unsafe by some of the things Charlie said? Because that's what, and I'm sorry if the term the left offended you. I didn't mean that to offend you, but that's how we left, middle, whatever. Okay. Because maybe that's what the media and what people are saying now is, oh, he said this or he said this or that, whatever. Maybe if you actually spend some time actually listening to what he said. I even respect people who are atheists, although I think that it takes a lot more faith to be an atheist than it does to believe that there's a higher power and a creative designer, right? Separation of church and state is a myth, okay? It's not in the Constitution. Our world has flipped that and tried to say that there's no place for faith in the public life. And so that's not really what he meant. When I'm on city council, I don't sit up on the dais and preach a sermon. That's inappropriate, right? We're there to do city business. Whatever the decisions that I make are based on my biblical worldview. Just like my colleagues that make their decisions are based on their biblical or not biblical worldview.
For once, I would like to see just one MAGA public school teacher or public school educator enter the chat and explain to me why you think this is academically or developmentally appropriate to be going on inside your school. There's a few key takeaways that I want you guys to leave with. Number one, this is the mayor of her town going to her local public high school and using Turning Point USA as a tool to indoctrinate your children. She has the audacity to say that she doesn't use her public office to preach in city council meetings, but she thinks she has the right to go to her local public high school and do that exact thing with other people's children. Separation of church and state is a myth, she says, that's perpetuated by the left, yet she's doing the very textbook definition of state-sponsored indoctrination inside public schools. Number two, their accusations are always confessions. They have spent several decades accusing public school teachers of being liberal indoctrinators, but this woman has the audacity to sit in front of these kids and lecture them about her personal, religious, and political views. Yep. Number three, it's really disturbing to me how they are treating Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk's legacy as if he is Jesus Christ himself. Yep. The way they talk about him.
Charlie did, political or not, he infused Jesus into
this is her preaching a sermon, but instead of preaching about Jesus, she's preaching about Charlie Kirk. Number four, is it? I don't know. If they're going to continuously accuse us of using public school spaces to indoctrinate children into liberalism while they actually bring in clubs and adults to do actual indoctrination, then we should just meet them where they are. We need to just meet them where they are. If they're going to bring Turning Point USA into our high schools, then we need to be bringing clubs from the opposite end of the spectrum in to do the exact same thing that they're doing with our kids. The irony is they think actual teachers are doing this bullshit in their classroom to the left side of the spectrum, but they're not. And then number five, and then last but not least, this is not going to accomplish what they think is going to accomplish. Do you see these kids? Do you hear their muffled responses to what she's saying? This is not going to move children to the right the way they think it's going to. There are already kids that exist in schools that think this way, but they're not going to be moving anyone in their direction by sending a middle-aged woman in to lecture these kids for over an hour about conservatism and the dangers of liberalism. They have this picture in their mind of this being like March of the Witch Hunter, where they get all these kids riled up, and that's not going to happen. It's so weird, y'all. And every day I say I'm not going to be as angry today as I was yesterday because it gets triggering and it gets tiring. But then I see shit like this and I can't help myself because what the fuck?
Okay, the biggest thing I wanted to talk about with this particular video is the anti-intellectualism. So all of this aside, before we dive into every single specific thing, I want to point out that if you just listen to what she's saying and you are educated even a little bit, you can hear that she's basically listing off like a bunch of bullshit that's not true. And that's not like my opinion. That's not me disagreeing with her because of politics. She's just saying things that are not true. And she's trying to say them with a sense of authority. But really what she's trying to do is interject the wrong understanding of things. So she mentioned pilots, right? And the thing that gets me about this example is that for whatever reason, because Charlie Kirk said this, people think this is a great point. They think that airlines that rely on their ability to safely get people from point A to point B are just gonna, because of DEI, just give underqualified Black pilots a position purely so they could win woke points. When in reality, and we saw this with how quickly they got rid of DEI, these companies are usually only invested in these things as much as they can financially benefit from them. DEI is one of those annoying conversations because a lot of people do not understand it. And I think the thing most people don't understand about DEI is that it was about job outreach, not job placement. So let's say that what she's saying is true, that the airlines were like, look, we want to get 50% more Black pilots than we typically do. What that looks like is them going into Black communities to recruit. That looks like them communicating, hey, we're hiring over here, to recruit them to potentially apply for that job. That's what DEI is. It's about outreach. It's not really about we're just going to hire people on the basis of their race. It means we're going to make an extra effort to expand our diversity and inclusion in this company. And I think that there's a very intentional misunderstanding about that. Who's funding this? Billionaires, right? Billionaires want for you to feed into these culture war issues and believe that if you're getting paid less, it's because we had to lower the standards for Black people. When in reality, they just wanted to pay you less. It is not easy to be a pilot, and no one is giving Black people pilot licenses or the ability to fly multi-million dollars of equipment just to be woke, just for the sake of looking woke. That's not actually how that works. And I think that it's very telling that people think that's how it works. And again, this kind of goes back to my anti-intellectualism thing. I know about DEI because I researched it. These people learned about DEI from racist white people who were paid off by billionaires to make the argument that DEI is just a bunch of waste of time. Because let's be frank about it, these companies don't want to support DEI, right? They don't want to diversify their companies. They want to maintain all of the money and the power. They don't want to make things a bit better for everyone. They want to hoard wealth. That is at the core of what they believe, right? So it's aggravating to me that so many people fall for this, because for me, it's like, this is a scam. It's a scam that they're trying to get you to buy into. So many white men think that the reason they didn't get the job is because some person of color got it and they had lower standards for that person of color. When in all reality, for white people in this country, the standards have always been quite low because all you have to do is be white. And that's something a lot of white folks, I don't think, really understand, right? I mentioned this in a couple of previous videos, but there was an incident recently where a bunch of Koreans came over to America to work in the Hyundai factories, right? These Koreans had skills that American workers didn't have. The technology had existed in Korea for a bit longer, and there were people who had decades of understanding of this technology that were coming to America to teach Americans how to do this shit. Bunch of racist white people said, oh my God, these Koreans are coming to the country and they're taking our jobs. When in all reality, these Koreans actually knew more about this shit than you did. And that's why it was going that way. And you could have helped yourself by not being racist. That's the thing that gets me. Like, on a purely selfish level, like, racist white people are fascinating to me because there's a version of you coexisting productively with people and not caring about supremacy that would actually, I think, be better for the entire populace. But I think that there are so many white folks in this country who would rather live in a poor quality country that falls behind than a diverse country that moves forward. Do you know what I mean? And it is very aggravating to observe because, again, it's not fucking working. She has a daughter who experienced sexual violence. And because of that sexual violence, this daughter apparently decided to start dating women. That was one of the grossest parts of this video to me because, first of all, I've always hated this idea that the only reason people are queer is because they experience some sort of sexual violence as a child. But I also think that understanding really undermines the amount of people who have survived that and obviously didn't turn out that way. Maybe people are just gay. Maybe people are just gay. Maybe your daughter is just gay. And how much do you love your daughter when you're getting in front of a classroom and saying that she loves who she loves and married who she married because she was raped as a child? What the fuck? This is the shit that I hate about these fucking people. These people, they'll do this shit where I love you. We love you. I care for you. And that's why I think you're going to hell. And it's like, you don't though, actually. You don't. Like, you don't. You actually, what you want is to have a paternalistic relationship with that person. You want for us to always acknowledge you as superior and you think that you get to define who has the valid life and who doesn't. And it's really aggravating because that's not how that works, girl. That's not how that works. You know, whether you like it or not. And no amount of shame is going to make her straight. Not really. And these people, it's like they don't even understand that the shit they say is, it's just so disgusting. Like this idea, this narrative of coexisting and all this other shit. It's like, all right, do you really want to coexist with gay people? I don't think so. You want them to be oppressed. You want them to be submissive. You want them to be silent. She mentioned that Martin Luther King was a Marxist and all this other shit. Yeah. And you feel that way because you're racist. And it's crazy because these people, they don't want to say it. They don't want to just say it. And I do appreciate hearing some of the students push back at it because it's obviously you're full of shit, man. But you're standing in front of a bunch of kids talking about indoctrination while you're actively indoctrinating them. It's actually quite insane, love. It's actually quite insane, love. Like, I get the impression, sometimes I think some of the people who say this shit, like, they know that what they're saying is fucked up. But then I get the impression that some people, they genuinely don't get it. Separation of church and state is like the basis of this country. It is quite literally the basis of this country. And if you have this like obsession with American history, but you don't understand that, like this country was literally created as an outgrowth of that. So it's weird that you don't think that's part of it, right? It's not in the Constitution. Yeah, it is. What's sad to me is these people just repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And apparently, like, people just believe it. That's the sad part about it. It's sad to me that these people actually get away with it. And I gotta be frank, like, there's a part of me that's concerned about this. It's hard to really know where this is gonna go. I would like to believe that people are smart enough to not fall for this bullshit. But I know that they're trying to get control of information, right? Like, you have to think about this. These people are also responsible for a lot of book bans. They're trying to close down libraries. They're embracing AI, which has the main purpose of essentially creating information that seems like it's from authority when it isn't, right? AI has a way of twisting things and it discourages actual research. For most of those topics that she talked about, if you just research it, you know she's full of shit. But people won't do that. That's what's really scary. People won't do that. People have been refusing to participate in the process of figuring out whether or not the thing they believe is actually true. And that's scary. Like, ideology aside, there's like a basic human instinct thing that people are discouraging that is very scary to me right now. You've got all of these billionaires who are talking about replacing human workers. And at the same time, you've got people like this who I think their main purpose within these spaces is to spread anti-intellectualism. Just think about it. You're sitting in high school in a classroom and you've got the mayor of the city coming in to speak to you. You're obviously going to think, oh, the mayor probably knows a bit more than I do. You're going to give that person authority within your head. You're going to think the mayor is an intelligent person who would not mislead me. Now, if you were a student like I was, you wouldn't necessarily believe that, but a lot of people would. And unfortunately, it's working for a lot of people. And we've seen that in a big way with social media, where you've got the Joe Rogans of the world who don't know their elbow from their asshole, and they are seen as authorities. It's crazy. I think that there's been a very concerted effort to normalize anti-intellectualism. And that is what is scary to me.
If I'm a Christian nationalist, but they use nationalists and other conservative leaders, other elected officials. She says the most horrible things. I'm not concerned because what she does is she takes things out of context. And that's a dangerous place. Christian nationalists and all these names, that's just a name that the left made up to silence people.
It's not, though. It's not, though. See, one of the things that I thought about as she was saying this is my video that I made many years ago about the rebranding of white nationalism. What I tried to point out in that video is that there were a lot of white nationalists who were very intentionally trying to conceal the reality of their nationalism, of their racism, of what they ultimately want to do in this country, which is to really reinforce the idea that America is a white ethno-state for Christian men. What is the natural conclusion of this lady standing up and advocating against the things that Martin Luther King advocated against? A loss of civil rights. And I think that far too few people understood that's what this was all about. And the reason why that is scary is because it sets the foundation for white nationalism, right? White nationalism requires this idea of white people in crisis, right? It requires this sort of idea that if we don't get this under control, if we don't literally limit the mobility and ability for people of color to reproduce, we are going to go extinct. That's the thread here, right? The undertone, like the subtext of a lot of what she's saying here is that Black people should not be given opportunities, that the civil rights movement was a mistake, and that there shouldn't be separation of church and state, which of course, Christianity in America justifies slavery, normalizes a polarity, a sort of supremacy between human beings. Christianity is a very strong part of the way that these nationalists try to insert their ideology. And I understand why people wouldn't immediately make those connections, because of course, most of this is organized for you never to be able to make those connections. Donald Trump is not some like Christian dude. Elon Musk is not some like Christian dude. Not really, but they recognize that in this country, Christianity has that kind of pull. It has that kind of power. So what they do is they get behind Christianity. They use Christianity as a way of getting what they want, which, is ultimately apartheid and white nationalism. Elon Musk grew up in fucking apartheid South Africa. So did a lot of these billionaires who are trying to normalize this idea that human beings hold no intrinsic value. And a lot of times when I talk about this, I feel crazy because I know people aren't going to hear what I'm saying. I've been yelling into the void about this for quite some time. When I posted my video about the rebranding of white nationalism, which is now re-uploaded, it got taken down. I got really harassed for that. And that's something that's always going to stick in my brain. And it's always going to stick in my brain. I didn't actually end up finishing that series that I was trying to do with that video. In 2017, I had the opportunity to go to the YouTube headquarters. And at the time, one of the things that I really wanted to address with YouTube was the way that white nationalism was growing and being normalized. Keep in mind, this is the era of Richard Spencer, a lot of those figures that now have grown to prominence within this Trumpism thing that we're in. And my big thing was that these people are being financially incentivized to make this content. And there should be something done about that, because it's just going to mean that there's going to be more and more of this content. And people are going to adjust to these ideas and embrace these ideas, which ultimately they may not initially recognize as white nationalist. Now, we're at a point in this whole Trump bullshit where the Supreme Court has made it legal for people to be racially profiled. The path that we're on towards white nationalism is clear, but how do people embrace this shit? How do they embrace this shit before understanding what's actually happening? They don't initially recognize it as that. How many people voted for Trump and were shocked by what happened to the immigrants, right? What's happening to immigrants, right? Do you hear that they're opening up for-profit schools in these camps, right? Like, billionaires, let's just really tie it up into a knot, right? Let's really lay this out for people to not get this, right? Let's really lay this out. There's a reason why TPUSA is specifically targeting Black folks and specifically speaking about the way that the civil rights movement was like a mistake that should not have ever happened, right? Most of the riches in this country came from slavery. And what a whole class of white folks miss in this country is the ability to own other people. What they're trying to do right now is get us back to that point. They're starting with immigrants because you can make the argument, oh, they're not legal, they're not supposed to be here. So what happens? They get captured, they get taken up, they get put into work camps. Billionaires benefit from the work and the labor that these people are doing in those camps. Work that they used to pay for, right? Not as much as they should have, but they used to pay something. And most of these people, they learned how to hoard wealth by screwing people over. And the slave is the most screwed over. If you can define somebody's existence as criminal, you are able to enslave them under the 14th Amendment. That's what they're trying to do. This is not conspiracy. This is not conspiratorial thinking. I'm not like making connections from nowhere. That's literally what's happening. This is what's happening, right? And so you get into schools, you teach kids that the civil rights movement wasn't really something that should have ever happened, that Black people who are in positions of power don't deserve those positions of power. And what are you really saying? You're saying that Black people are too mentally deficient to really have any ownership of their own humanity. Which means, well, maybe they would be better as workers. Maybe they would just be better as workers. And that is literally what they said to justify slavery, along with their Christianity. So I think a lot of people have a hard time seeing this stuff, but to me, it's all very clear, right? Why is she specifically speaking about her lesbian daughter? Because the worst thing that she did was decide to love a woman and not have children, right? Why is she pulled to have children? People will say it's their religion. But really, what does religion provide for the billionaire class? Workers. And that's a funny thing about it, right? White genocide as a concept is really just the idea that white people are not having enough children. And why is it that immigrants are in this country having a lot of children? More often than not, because of the religion that they were colonized into believing that encourages them to have more children, because it meant that billionaires could get more workers. And it also normalized this idea of suffering as this like great, brave thing that you're doing. So when the slaves suffer, when people go through oppression, when the billionaire class abuses the worker, your religion is supposed to make you accept it. Your religion is supposed to be the thing that makes you say, oh, yeah, I'm going through something, but my suffering is beautiful and just and meant to be. That's what this all is. That's all this is. That's all this is, right? And it's aggravating to me that a lot of people don't want to see it. And to bring it back to the point that I was making earlier in this video, one of the things that's really depressing is I would hope that one day white people would wake up to this. I really do mean that. You're being scammed. You are being scammed, right? Think about the farmers who voted for Trump, right? There were so many farmers who voted for Trump thinking, oh, he's going to basically make my life easier. He's going to make it so that these illegals get out of there and I get all the, and now they're suffering. And they're like, wait a minute, I didn't think it would hurt me, but like it was always going to. And now their farms are being brought up by private equity, right? Private equity is now owning quite a bit of our farmland. Private equity now owns quite a bit of our farmland that they basically relinquished because they voted for Donald Trump. And it's aggravating mostly because I think if certain people could liberate themselves from these isms and started to think a bit more about working together, we would probably not be in most of this. But so many people only feel powerful when other people are pushed down. And that's the illness of supremacy. I think what it has done to especially white folks in this country is it has normalized a certain degree of mediocrity that they have not understood as mediocrity. And now we're in this thing where they feel frustrated that certain people, because they've been given civil rights, have applied themselves. You've got men who think that college is now too feminine because women, when given the opportunity, have excelled at college. When you really look at all of this stuff that people are talking about right now, it really is because we were able to give civil rights to other people and they excelled at it. The mediocrity, the inherent privilege that comes with white folks, that comes with white supremacy, is not as strong and powerful as it once was. And a lot of people are freaking out about it. Laura Loomer today was like, can we put more white people in commercials? Where are all the white people in commercials? And it's at a certain point, I hope white folks wake up. I really do. I really do. Because none of this is actually helping you. None of it. Anyway, I think Turning Point USA is, I think, quite dangerous. I will say it's been interesting and strange to see the way that a lot of stuff has gone down with this. Like, the Erica Kirk shit is funny to me at a certain point. Not that she lost her husband, but like how much they're trying to force this on us. It's not going to work. It's not working. I don't think it's working. I think it's going to work on a decent amount of people. But I think right now it's also heavy-handed. I don't know about you, but I've turned the TV off. I'm not watching the news. I'm not going to fall for the propaganda. I'm focusing on what's around me right now. And that is helping me quite a bit.